It's kind of like this. Let's picture the werewolf. Remember the old movies about the werewolf, Lon Chaney? He's like, you know, I'm going to turn into, when the moon gets full, I'm going to turn into a werewolf. I'm going to try to eat you. So please do me a favor and chain me to this bed or lock me in this room and don't let me out, okay? In advance, he makes, you know, provisions for when the inevitable time comes when he turns into a werewolf and goes nuts. Well, we're kind of the same way. In times of emergency and fear, war, famine, disease, whatever it is, we tend to, like what, as I just heard a little while ago, that Barack Obama has now declared a national emergency because of a swine flu. Is that right? Is that right? No, did he do that though? Okay. So whatever the boogeyman is, whatever the fear is, the whole point of our Constitution is that in times when we're not afraid, we lay down the rules that are going to limit us when we will want to break those chains. Those are the chains again. Like Lon Chaney as the werewolf, we know, the founders knew, that in times of desperation, people would seek to do whatever they thought was necessary, including rounding up citizens of Japanese descent and turning them, including arresting newspaper editors and pamphleteers in the street, including rounding up American citizens and detaining without trial. They knew this would be done. Disarming people like was done in Katrina, blocking people into the city like was done in Katrina, not allowed to leave across the bridge. Why? Because they were black? Is that why they did that? Who knows? Point is, it doesn't make a difference whether they're white or black or whatever. They were U.S. citizens detained within a city, not allowed to leave. They were U.S. citizens disarmed, house to house, by order of the chief of police of the city of New Orleans. It's on our video. Yeah. Upon pain of death, the threat of death, disarmed. Is the Bill of Rights suspended by a little bit of bad weather? Is it suspended by a flu pandemic? No. The founders put those restraints in place precisely for times of emergency. The idea that when there's an emergency, you can step away from the bounds of the Constitution and the Bill of Rights is ridiculous. It defeats the whole point. They're not written for the best of times. They're written for the worst of times. They're written for when we do like Lon Chaney and become a werewolf. The moon of fear and war and disease comes full. And we turn into the werewolf and desire to go loose and do whatever we think we have to do to satisfy our appetites for safety or appetites for vindictiveness against our political opponents. Don't you think they'd love to unleash the full power of government against us? I've been on Daily Kos a few times and poked around. And they're calling for us to be investigated. You know, they're going to go do their own snooping and peeking around, trying to find something to sick the DOJ on us. And one guy said, "That's not enough for me. I want them all dead." That's what he said about Oath Keepers. I want them dead. And then earlier this year, there was a poster on Daily Kos debating and discussing, you know, I guess some gun rights activists said, hey, you know, you got to watch out. Don't push too hard. It could lead to a civil war if you try to disarm us. And this response, this Daily Kos writer was, you think you stand up to the U.S. military? When we shell your cities, when we crawl in airstrikes on your homes and flatten your homes with your women and children inside, this guy said, you'll submit, is what he said. And then someone said, well, hey, wait a minute, that'll, you know, if you do something like that, the American people won't stand for it. He said, hey, when the media gets done with the smear campaign against these people, they'll be clamoring for us to do it, is what this guy said. So not only does this guy think the police and military are just mindless robots who will kill their own citizens, will kill women and children, that's what they think of us, I guess, but they also think the media is a compliant tool too. We'll just do their bidding and help them smear to justify the flattening of our homes with our women and children inside. Now, how is that? Is that hate speech? Don't you think? How come no one's going around calling Daily Kos? I mean, has anybody seen like a counterpart to that on our site? And yet we're labeled, we're on the hate watch in Southern Poverty Law Center's blog. We're all over the place in the news and being painted by people who should know better, by fake journalists, fake bloggers, who are just, all they are is just tools. They're not trying to be journalists, discover the truth. They're trying to smear and label for the purpose expressed by that Daily Coast writer to smear us to the point where they can justify the unleashing of the full force of government against those they consider their enemies. The founders put in place the chains of the Constitution precisely to prevent the majority, or whoever happens to hold power, from unleashing the full force of government against the minority, whether they be white, black, Japanese. The whole point is you restrain the passions that will come to the surface in times of emergency. I would have liked to have seen in the Japanese internment the U.S. Army troops, my branch. They were ordered to go and round up men, women, and children of Japanese descent and take them and confine them in concentration camps. I would have liked to have seen some of them, at least one of them, refuse. Now, someone will say, I've even had some military people say, how dare you question my honor? I will keep my oath. And to them I say, well, look at that. Look at the internment of Japanese Americans. Look at the disarmament during Katrina. Yes, there are men of honor and women of honor and integrity in the military services who will keep their oath. But we know that there are some who will not, unfortunately. It is our goal, it is our dream, that if we reach out to all of them, we can reach, teach, and inspire all of them to keep their oaths. The best outcome, if ever a day should come, when any willful president, or even a willful general who attempts to pull a coup, ever attempts to establish his or herself as a dictator in this country, it is my hope and our dream that all of the people with the guns, all of the police, and all of the military will refuse to comply and will stand down and tell the dictator, go do it yourself. And that's our mission here with Oath Keepers, is to make sure that we remind those in service about their obligations under that civic duty.